Ethan had always dreamed of exploring the farthest reaches of space. As a skilled pilot and experienced explorer, he had journeyed to countless planets and strange worlds, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened when his ship crash-landed on a mysterious island. The violent storm had come out of nowhere, an unpredicted anomaly that rocked his ship, causing the controls to malfunction and sending the vessel spiraling into an unknown atmosphere. The sudden crash was like nothing he had ever felt before. His body jerked and slammed against the seat, and the ship's systems sputtered in panic. When the smoke cleared and the ship came to a halt, Ethan found himself in the middle of a dense jungle surrounded by towering trees and thick vines. He was disoriented, his head pounding and his vision blurred. The once pristine walls of his ship were now mangled, the wreckage scattered across the unfamiliar landscape. It was clear that he wouldn't be able to get his ship off this planet anytime soon. Ethan managed to crawl out of the wreckage, his body aching, and took a deep breath of the heavy, humid air. "Where am I?" he muttered to himself, wiping the dirt and sweat from his face. The trees around him were unlike anything he had ever seen. The leaves were large, almost oversized, and the air smelled of something both foreign and sweet. It was like a paradise, but there was an eerie quietness to it that made Ethan uneasy. His first instinct was to find a way to contact his crew, but his communication devices were destroyed in the crash. Alone and stranded, he had no choice but to explore the island and find shelter. Ethan walked cautiously through the jungle, his eyes darting around, scanning for any signs of life. The sounds of strange creatures echoed through the trees, but he couldn't see any animals. It was as though the jungle was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Hours passed as he trudged through the thick underbrush, the sun high above, and his body growing tired. Just when he thought he might collapse from exhaustion, he heard the rustling of leaves. He paused, holding his breath, trying to make out what was making the noise. From the shadows of the trees, figures began to emerge. At first he thought they were animals, but as they stepped closer, he realized they were women, and not just any women, but tall, powerful figures that looked nothing like humans. These women were unlike anything Ethan had seen in all his travels. Their skin was smooth and golden, their hair long and flowing with hues that shimmered in the sunlight. Their bodies were strong and muscular, yet graceful. They moved with an air of confidence, their eyes shining with intelligence and something else, something that sent a chill down Ethan's spine. He froze, unsure of how to react. His mind raced with questions. Who were they? Where did they come from? And what did they want with him? The women approached him cautiously, speaking in now, a language that Ethan didn't understand. He took a step back, instinctively putting his hands up in a peaceful gesture. His heart was pounding in his chest, and he had no idea what to expect. They had weapons, swords and spears that glinted in the sun. He could feel their gazes on him, intense and searching. One of the women, who appeared to be the leader, stepped forward. She was taller than the rest, with dark, piercing eyes that seemed to see right through him. Her voice was firm, yet soft as she spoke to him in her alien tongue. Ethan shook his head, trying to convey that he didn't understand. I don't know your language," he said slowly, his voice filled with uncertainty. The woman blinked, studying him with curiosity. She then gestured for him to follow, and without waiting for his response, she turned and began walking. Ethan hesitated for a moment, but his survival instincts kicked in. He had no choice but to follow. Whatever these women wanted, he was certain it was better than being alone in the jungle. The group led him to a large clearing in the jungle, where a beautiful village lay hidden beneath the thick canopy of trees. The homes were made of natural materials crafted with a perfect balance between nature and function. The village was built along the edges of a pristine river, its waters clear and flowing steadily. The air smelled fresher here, and Ethan felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. As they approached the village, the women parted, and the leader motioned for Ethan to enter a large building in the center. It was unlike any building he had ever seen. Its architecture was beautiful, combining organic curves with intricate carvings that seemed to tell a story. Inside, the room was spacious, lit by the soft glow of bioluminescent plants that grew along the walls. The scent of flowers filled the air, and Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The leader gestured for Ethan to sit, and though he still didn't fully understand what was happening, he complied, sitting down on a cushion at the center of the room. The women gathered around him, watching him with rapt attention. "You are different," the leader said, speaking in slow, careful words, as if trying to find a common ground. Ethan couldn't help but wonder if she was trying to communicate with him on purpose, choosing her words carefully. I'm from Earth," Ethan replied, trying to explain. "My ship crashed. I'm lost." The leader tilted her head in curiosity. There was no sign of fear or aggression in her demeanor, just a deep curiosity that Ethan couldn't quite place. Her eyes seemed to be searching for something deeper, an understanding that went beyond mere words. "You are a human?" she asked, her voice a little softer now. Ethan nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief that she seemed to recognize what he was. He had no idea how much they knew about humans, but he was beginning to realize that these women were not as alien as he first thought. The leader stood and gestured for him to follow her once more. She led him to a stone platform at the center of the village where the entire tribe had gathered. The women of the tribe looked at him with curiosity and respect, their gazes filled with awe. "This is our sacred place. Here, the spirits speak." The leader's voice was filled with reverence. She raised her hands to the sky, and the other women followed her lead. They chanted something in their language, a song that resonated deeply with Ethan, though he couldn't understand the words. As the chant grew louder, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt charged with energy, and Ethan felt a strange sense of power course through him. The leader turned to him, her eyes glowing with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "The spirits have spoken. You are our king." "Irq," words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. "King? What do you mean?" He couldn't believe what he was hearing. How could he be their king? He was just a human, stranded on their island. The leader smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "The spirits have chosen you, human. You will lead us." She placed her hand on his shoulder, and for the first time, Ethan felt a deep sense of responsibility, something that went beyond just survival. Confused and overwhelmed, Ethan stood there, surrounded by the women of the tribe, who now saw him as their leader. The weight of their belief in him was heavy, but he knew one thing for sure. His life had just changed forever. Ethan sat down on the stone platform, still trying to wrap his mind around the words spoken by the leader. The women of the tribe surrounded him, their eyes fixed on him as though they were waiting for him to say something, do something. He didn't know what to say. Everything felt so surreal, as if he had stepped into a different world entirely. His heart raced. King? Him? A stranded human from Earth, who only hours ago had been desperately trying to survive a crash landing on a strange and unknown planet. He didn't feel like a king. He was a pilot, an explorer, but a king. That idea seemed impossible. Yet, the women's faith in him was undeniable. Their eyes, filled with awe and reverence, told him something he couldn't ignore. The leader of the tribe, still standing before him, raised her hands in a graceful motion. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of something ancient and profound. "The spirits have spoken and they have chosen you," she repeated, her voice firm but gentle. "The bond between you and this island is strong. You will be our protector, our leader." Ethan couldn't understand how or why, but he was too exhausted to argue. Perhaps there was some mistake. Yet, the way the other women looked at him, their respectful gazes, suggested that this wasn't a mistake. I don't know how to lead," Ethan said quietly, his voice unsure. "I'm just a human. I don't belong here." The leader, whose name he still hadn't learned, knelt before him, her long dark hair falling like a silken waterfall around her face. She gazed into his eyes, and there was a soft but unyielding conviction in her expression. "You are exactly what we need," She reached out and placed her hand on his chest just above his heart. "The spirits have brought you here for a reason. You will find your way. You have only to trust in the island and in us." Ethan nodded, though he still wasn't sure what to believe. The tribe's customs and beliefs were foreign to him. But there was something powerful about them, something that made him feel both small and incredibly important at the same time. Over the next few days, the women of the tribe began to show him the ways of their world. They were not only warriors but also scholars, healers, and artisans. They had their own language, their own methods of survival, and a deep connection to the island and the natural world around them. The tribe's village was a place of harmony. Homes were built high in the trees, woven together with vines' branches. Ethan stood at the edge of the village, gazing out at the vast stretch of ocean that surrounded the island. The blue waters sparkled under the bright sun, the horizon stretching endlessly into the distance. He had always thought of himself as a survivor, someone who could handle any challenge. But standing here now, in a world so different from his own, he felt small. The weight of the tribe's belief in him as their king was heavy on his shoulders, and the pressure to protect them grew with each passing day. Bera's words echoed in his mind. "The island is in danger. The spirits have chosen you to protect us." He had never asked for this role, and he certainly had no experience in leading or fighting. But there was no turning back now. The tribe had already placed their trust in him, and he couldn't let them down. As he turned back toward the village, he was met by a group of women, each with a different role in the tribe. Leah, a healer, approached him first, carrying a basket of herbs in her hands. Her long hair was braided and she walked with grace, her soft eyes filled with kindness. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I need you to understand something. We are not like your world. We do not fight for power or wealth. We fight to protect what we love, the island, our people, and our way of life." Ethan nodded, trying to absorb her words. He had come to respect these women, each one a warrior, a healer, or a leader in her own right. He had learned much from them in the short time he had been here, how to hunt, how to gather, how to survive in this alien world. But now, he was being asked to protect them from enemies he had never met, on a planet he didn't understand. Bera joined them soon after, her tall form moving through the village with the strength and confidence that Ethan had come to admire. She had been the one to first speak of the threats to their island, and she was the one who had chosen to lead them in battle. But even she had her doubts, and Ethan could see that in her eyes whenever they spoke of the coming war. "The time is coming," Vera said, her voice low and determined. "The rival tribes will attack soon. We need to prepare." Ethan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He had no idea what kind of tribes they were talking about, but the fear in Vera's voice told him everything he needed to know. These were not just simple raids. This was a battle for survival, a fight to protect their home from those who sought to take it from them. "What do you need from me?" Ethan asked, stepping closer to her. "How can I help?" Vera looked at him for a moment as if measuring his resolve. "We need your help to unite the tribe. The spirits may have chosen you, but it is not enough to be a king. A king leads by strength and wisdom. We need you to teach us, to help us prepare for what's to come." Ethan took a deep breath. He didn't feel like a king. He didn't feel ready to lead a group of powerful women into battle, but he couldn't refuse them, not now, not after everything they had done for him. "I'll do what I can," he said finally. "But I don't know how to fight your way. I'm not a warrior. I'm just a man from another world." Vara nodded. "You have more than just strength. You have something we need, strategy. You have seen more of the world than any of us. You know how to fight with your mind, to outthink your enemies. That's why we need you." It was a relief to hear Vara say that. Ethan had never been much of a fighter, but he had been trained in tactics and strategy. He had fought in battles before, but those had always been battles of the mind, not the body. He would have to adapt to this new way of thinking, one where survival depended on more than just strength. Over the next few days, Ethan began working closely with the tribe, helping them prepare for the attack. They spent hours each day training, sparring with one another, and learning new tactics. Ethan taught them what he knew about modern warfare, while they shared their ancient techniques, skills honed over generations. They were warriors, each one skilled with a variety of weapons from spears to bows to swords. But Ethan quickly learned that their true strength came not from the weapons they wielded, but from their unity. They fought not as individuals, but as a single, powerful force. Ethan also worked with Leah, learning more about the island's natural resources. He was amazed at the tribe's knowledge of the plants and herbs that grew here, each one having a specific purpose, whether for healing, for nourishment, or for defense. The island, it seemed, was alive with possibilities. Every plant, every animal had a purpose in the grand balance of nature. "This is our gift," Leah said one evening as they sat together near a bubbling stream. "The island gives us everything we need as long as we respect it. We are connected to it in ways you cannot understand." Ethan nodded, appreciating the depth of their connection to the land. He had never seen anything like it in his world. It made him wonder how his own people had become so disconnected from nature. Perhaps, he thought, there was something to this way of life after all. As the days passed, Ethan's role in the tribe became clearer. He was not just a king in title, but a leader in action. The women began to look to him for guidance, not just in battle, but in how they lived their lives. They had their rituals, their traditions, but now they were learning from him as well. He had brought them a new perspective, a way of thinking that they had never considered before. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Ethan and Farah sat together by the fire, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the darkening sky. "Do you think we'll be ready?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "What if we fail? What if I'm not the leader they think I am?" Farah looked at him, her expression softening. "You are the leader we need, we have no doubt about that. You have proven yourself time and time again." She reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You are not just leading us in battle, Ethan. You are leading us in life. You have shown us that we can be strong, not just because of the weapons we carry, but because of the strength within us." Her words filled him with a sense of warmth, and for the first time since his arrival on the island, Ethan felt that he might be able to live up to the expectations placed on him. He was no longer just a lost explorer. He was part of something much greater, a tribe of women who had chosen him to lead them, to protect them, and he would not fail them. The next morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, Ethan stood with Farah and the other women, preparing for the battle that lay ahead. They had trained hard, and now the time had come to put everything they had learned into action. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline as he stood with them, his heart racing. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. The rival tribes would be here soon, and the island would either stand or fall. As the tribe gathered around him, ready for battle, Ethan looked at each of their faces. He saw determination, strength, and pride. These women had become more than just his tribe, they had become his family, and he would fight for them with everything he had. "Today we fight for our island, for our people," he said, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "We will not back down. We will stand together and we will protect what is ours." The women cheered, their voices echoing through the village. It was time to face the enemy. The days before the battle felt like an eternity. Ethan spent every moment preparing for the coming conflict, knowing that it would test everything he had learned and every skill he had acquired since his crash. The tribe was depending on him, and despite his doubts, he knew he couldn't let them down. They had already placed their faith in him as a leader, and he would do whatever it took to honor that trust. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light across the village, as Ethan stood by the edge of the clearing. The women were gathering around, preparing for a ritual. The air was thick with anticipation, and a quiet sense of reverence hung in the air. Ethan had seen the tribe perform rituals before, but this one felt different. This one was meant to mark the beginning of his role as their true leader. Farah stood next to him, her usual stoic expression softened by the weight of the moment. She had become more than just a warrior to him. She had become his closest ally and confidant. Her unwavering belief in him had helped him grow into the leader the tribe needed, and he respected her more than words could express. "Are you ready?" Vera asked, her voice calm but with a hint of something deeper, a mixture of pride and concern. Ethan nodded, though his stomach churned with nerves. "I think so. I don't know what to expect, though." Vera smiled faintly, her sharp eyes watching him closely. "It is not about what you expect. It is about what you become." The tribe's elders gathered in a circle around the fire at the center of the village. They were chanting softly in their native language, their voices carrying the ancient words of the tribe's ancestors. Ethan had learned some of the words, but the meaning behind them remained a mystery to him. It wasn't just a chant, it was a connection to something far greater, something that Ethan could feel in his bones as the ground beneath his feet seemed to hum with energy. As the chanting grew louder, one of the elders, a woman named Taya, approached Ethan with a ceremonial staff in her hands. She was older than the others, her face marked by the wisdom of years spent protecting the tribe. Her eyes were kind but sharp, as if she could see right through him. "Ethan," Taya said, her voice steady and commanding. "The spirits have already chosen you, but you must now prove yourself. You must show them that you are worthy of the title they have given." The air was thick with tension as Ethan stood at the front of the tribe, staring out across the horizon. The once calm sea now looked dark and turbulent, as though it was mirroring the unease that gripped the village. He had spent the past few days preparing with the women, going over their strategies, learning their ways of combat, and trying to make sense of their world. Now, the time had come for him to lead them in battle. The rival tribes were coming. Ethan had learned that these enemies were relentless, tribes that had lived on other parts of the island for generations, hungry for power and willing to do anything to take control. They didn't care about the land or the people, they only cared about conquering. And they had set their sights on the women's island. Ethan had no idea how large the opposing forces were, but the tribe was ready. They had trained for this moment, and now it was time to put their skills to the test. The women had faith in him, and though doubt still lingered in the back of his mind, he knew one thing: he couldn't fail them. Not now. Not after everything they had given him. Vera stood beside him, her dark eyes scanning the horizon. She had been by his side since the moment he had arrived on the island, guiding him, training him, and teaching him what it meant to be a leader. She was his most trusted ally, and Ethan knew that her strength would be crucial in the battle ahead. "They are close," Vera said softly, her voice filled with certainty. "We must move quickly." Ethan nodded, his heart beating faster with every passing moment. He had never led a battle before, but the tribe's respect for him was evident in their eyes. They were ready to fight for their home, for their way of life. They trusted him to guide them, and that trust was something Ethan wasn't willing to break. "We'll be ready," Ethan replied, though his voice betrayed the uncertainty he felt inside. The women gathered around him, forming a circle. They were dressed in simple but functional armor made from materials found on the island, woven vines and leather, hardened and shaped into protective gear. They held their weapons with confidence: spears, bows, and swords, each one a reflection of their skill and dedication. Ethan looked at them, taking a deep breath. His mind was clear now, his fears set aside. He had trained with these women, learned from them, and now it was time to lead them. "Listen up," he called, his voice carrying over the small crowd. "The enemy is coming, but we are stronger than they know. We fight for this island, for our people, and for the spirits that guide us. We will not let them take what is ours." The women nodded, their faces set with determination. Their bond was unbreakable, and they would fight for each other, for the land they loved, and for the man they now considered their king. "We will fight together," Ethan continued, "and we will win. We've trained for this. We've learned from each other. And now, we will show them what it means to challenge us." The women cheered, their voices rising with excitement and strength. Ethan could see the fire in their eyes, the same fire that had first drawn him to this island. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about pride, honor, and the future of the tribe. He was ready. The battle would take place in the dense forest that surrounded the village. The rival tribes were known for their guerrilla tactics, hiding in the trees, ambushing their enemies when they least expected it. But the tribe had something the invaders didn't: unity. They were a well-oiled machine, ready to defend their home with everything they had. The first wave of enemies arrived just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a reddish glow across the sky. The rival tribe was larger than Ethan had anticipated, twice the size of the tribe he led. They were armed with crude weapons, sharp spears, and crude shields, but they lacked the training and coordination of the women. The difference in discipline was clear as they emerged from the trees, their battle cries echoing through the jungle. Ethan stood at the front, his grip tight on his spear. The women had trained him in the art of combat, but this was different. This was real. There would be no turning back now. He took a deep breath and signaled to Vera, who stood at the ready beside him. "We hold the line," Ethan said firmly. "Do not let them breach the village." Vera nodded, her eyes flashing with resolve. "We fight to protect our home. We fight to protect you." The first clash came swiftly. The enemy charged with full force, and the women of the tribe met them head-on. The battle was fierce, the sounds of clashing weapons and cries of warriors filling the air. Ethan fought alongside them, his spear striking true, his movements becoming more fluid as the battle progressed. His earlier doubts faded as he saw the women's strength and determination. They were a force to be reckoned with, and with their leadership, they had already begun to push back the invaders. Ethan moved through the chaos, guiding the women, shouting orders, and directing the defense. His heart raced with each passing moment, but he felt a strange calmness settle over him. This was what he was meant to do. He wasn't just a man from another world anymore. He was their king, their protector, and this was his fight to win. Our rival tribe's warriors were skilled, but they were disorganized. The women's tactics, honed through years of experience and unity, began to overwhelm the attackers. They fought as one, each movement a reflection of the bond they shared. Ethan could see it now. The tribe's strength came not just from their individual skills, but from their trust in one another. Vera fought beside him, her spear a blur as she took down one enemy after another. Her strength and precision were unmatched, and Ethan couldn't help but admire her. She was everything he had hoped to be: brave, confident, and resolute. She was the heart of the tribe, and he was proud to stand by her side. As the battle raged on, Ethan found himself face to face with the leader of the rival tribe, a tall man, scarred from countless battles, with a look of fury in his eyes. He raised his spear, charging at Ethan with all his strength. The two warriors clashed, their spears meeting with a sharp crack. Ethan's arms trembled from the force of the blow, but he held his ground. He could feel the weight of the staff, the symbol of his leadership, pressing down on him. He wasn't just fighting for his survival. He was fighting for the tribe, for the island, for everything they had built together. With a swift movement, Ethan disarmed the rival leader, knocking the spear from his hands. He stepped forward, using his knowledge of strategy to outmaneuver the man. The rival leader stumbled, and Ethan saw his chance. With a quick strike, he knocked the man to the ground, pinning him with his foot. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. The rival tribe's forces were in disarray, their leader defeated. The women of the tribe pushed forward, their courage and unity proving stronger than any individual force. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the battle came to an end. The rival tribe had been driven back, their retreating warriors disappearing into the jungle. The women of the tribe stood victorious, their faces covered in dirt and blood, but their spirits unbroken. They had won. The island was safe, and they had protected what was theirs. Ethan stood with them, his heart still pounding from the battle. He had led them to victory, not with sheer strength, but with the trust they had placed in him. He had proven himself to be the leader they needed, and he felt a sense of pride unlike anything he had ever known. Vera approached him, a smile on her face, though it was tinged with exhaustion. "We did it," she said softly. Ethan nodded, his voice filled with gratitude. "We did. Together." The tribe gathered around him, their faces filled with pride and respect. They had fought for their home, for each other, and for the future of their people, and they had won. For Ethan, it was a moment of triumph. He had come to the island as a stranger, lost and alone. But now, he was part of something far greater, a tribe that had honored him, trusted him, and believed in him. And he would continue to lead them, to protect them with everything he had. The battle was over, but the journey was just beginning. The battle had been fierce, but the island was quiet. Now, the sounds of clashing weapons, shouts and cries had faded into the distance, leaving only the whisper of the wind through the trees and the gentle rustling of the leaves. Ethan stood at the edge of the village, looking out over the land that he and the tribe had fought so hard to protect. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light across the village and the jungle beyond. It was a new day, one that would mark the beginning of a new era for the tribe. The rival tribe had been defeated, their warriors either retreating into the jungle or captured in the aftermath. The tribe had proven their strength, not just in battle but in their unity, their spirit, and their unwavering belief in each other. The island had been saved, but the journey was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight. But Ethan now knew that he wasn't alone. He had a tribe to lead, a family to protect, and a future to build. As he stood there, lost in thought, Vara approached him, her footsteps light on the soft earth. She was covered in dirt and sweat, but her face was calm, her eyes filled with pride. "You did it, Ethan," she said softly, her voice warm with approval. "We did it. Together." Ethan turned to face her, his heart swelling with gratitude. "We did." He smiled, though his exhaustion was evident. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without all of you." Vara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch reassuring. "You have led us with wisdom and